Shama Kun, Radha Kun, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sri Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, the beautiful story of the personality of Godhead. Canto 2, Chapter 2, The Lord in the Heart. Text number 5. Charani Kim Pati Na Shanti Tasanti Bhiksham Na Eva Agripa Parpata Sarta Api Ashushan Buddha Duha Kim Achita Avati Na Upasanan Kasmat Pajanti Kavaya Dana Dhamada Anhan Charana Kempati Nashanti Jasanti Bhiksham Devangripa Parpata Sartopya Sushan
Devangripa Parvata Sartopya Sushan
Vidhagava Kim Ajito Vati Nupasan
Vidhagava Kim Ajito Vati Nupasan
Kasma Pashanti Kavaya Dana Dana Dadhan Charana Kempati Nasanti Dasanti Bhiksham Devangripa Parapata Sarito Pyayashushan Vidhagaya Kim Ajito Vati Nupasasan Kasma Pashanti Kavya Dana Dana Dadan Charani Kempati Nasanti Dasanti Bhiksham Hungry Parapata Sarita Pyasushan Bhagava Kim Ajita Vati Nupasanan Kasma Pachandi Kavaya Dana Dana Dadan
Shirani Kim Patina Santi Dishanti Bhiksham Avang Ripa Parvata Sarito Pishushan Vidhagava Kim Ajito Vati No Kasmad bhajanti kavayo dana durmadandam. Aninabha Shanti Vishanti.
Naivangripa Parabrita Sarito Pyashushyan
Amritat Parabhatam Sato Bishushan.
Rudaguha Kimajito Vati No Pasanan Kasmat Pajanti Kavayodana Dorma Dandan Chirani Kimpatina Santi Dishanti Bhikshang Naivan Gripa Parabrita Sarito Pyashushan Rudaguakim Ajito Vati No Pasanan Kasmad Bhajanti Kavayodana Durmadandan Chirani Kimpatina Santi Deshanti Viksham Naivangrihi Paparabhrita Sarotpya Shushyan Rudha Guhakim Ajito Vatino Prasannan Kasman Vajanti Kavayodhanna Durmadadhan Chirani Kimpati Nashanti Dashanti Bhiksham Naivan Vipapara Bharta Sharit Ripushiyan Rudha Guyakim Majito Vati Nopasanan Kasmad Bhajanti Kavayodana Durmadananan Chirani Kimpati Nasanti Dashanti Bhiksham Naivan Gripa Paraprita Sarito Yashushan Rudha Guha Kim Majito Vati Nopasanan Kasmad Bhajanti Kavayo Dhana Durmadantan Chirani Kimpati Nasanti Dashanti Bhiksham Evangripas Parabrita Sarito Pyashushyan Rudha Guha Kim Ajito Vati Nopasana Kasmad Bhajanti Kavayodhana Durmad Tantan
Chirani Kimpatina Santi Disanti Bhiksham Naivan Garipa Parapartha Saritopi Ashusham
Pishan.
Ruda Guha Kim Ajitovati No Pasananan. Tasmad Vajanti Kavayodana Durma Dandanhan.
Irani Kimpati na Santi Dishanti Viksham Naivangripa Parabrita Sarito Pyashushan Rudha Guhakim Ajito Matino Pasanan Asmad Vajanti Kavayodana Dhurma Dhandan
Charming torn clothes, Kim weather, Pati on the road, No, not Shanti, there is. The Shanti, given charity, Aksham, alms, No, not. Eva, also. Agripa, the trees. Parpata, one who maintains others. Sarata, the rivers. Api, also. Ashushan, have dried up. Udha, closed. Guha, caves. Kim, weather. Achita, the Almighty Lord. Avati, give protection. Na, not. Asanan, the surrendered souls. Kasmat, what for them? Bhajanti, flatters. Kavaya, the learned. Dana, wealth. Dharmada Andhan, too intoxicated by. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Are there no torn clothes lying on the common road? Do the trees, which exist for maintaining others, no longer give alms and charity? Do the rivers, being dried up, no longer supply water to the thirsty? Are the caves in the mountains now closed? Or above all, does the Almighty Lord not protect the fully surrendered souls? Why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard-earned wealth? Report. The renounced order of life is never meant for begging or living at the cost of others as a parasite. According to the dictionary, a parasite is a sycophant who lives at the cost of society without making any contribution to that society. The renounced order is meant for contributing something substantial to the society and not depending on the earnings of the householders. On the contrary, acceptance of alms from the householders by the bona fide mendicant is an opportunity afforded by the saint for tangible benefit of the donor. In the Sanatana Dharma institution, almsgiving to the mendicant is part of a householder's duty, and it is advised in the scriptures that the householders should treat the mendicants as their family children and should provide them with food, clothing, etc., without being asked. Pseudo-mendicants, therefore, should not take advantage of the charitable disposition of the faithful householders. The first duty of a person in the renounced order of life is to contribute some literary work for the benefit of the human being in order to give him realized direction towards self-realization. Amongst the other duties in renounced order of life of Srila Sanatan, Srila Rupa, and the other Goswamis of Vrindavan, the foremost duty discharged by them was to hold learned discourses amongst themselves at Sevakund's Vrindavan, the spot where Sri Radha Damodar temple was established by Srila Jiva Goswami, and where the actual Samadhi tombs of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami are laid. For the benefit of all in human society, they left behind them immense literatures of transcendental importance. Similarly, all the acharyas who voluntarily accepted the renounced order of life aimed at benefiting the human society and not at living a comfortable or irresponsible life at the cost of others. However, those who could not give any contribution should not go to the householders for food. For such mendicants, asking bread from the householders are an insult to the highest order. Shukadeva Goswami gave this warning especially for those mendicants who adopt this line of profession to solve their economic problems. Such mendicants are in abundance in the age of Kali. When a man becomes a mendicant willfully or by circumstances, he must be of firm faith and conviction that the Supreme Lord is the maintainer of all living beings everywhere in the universe. Why then would he neglect the maintenance of a surrendered soul who is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord? A common master looks to the necessities of his servant, so how much more would the all-powerful, all-opulent Supreme Lord look after the necessities of life for a fully surrendered soul? The general rule is that a mendicant devotee will accept a simple, small loincloth without asking anyone to give it in charity. He simply salvages it from the rejected torn cloth thrown in the street. When he is hungry, he may go to a magnanimous tree which drops fruits. And when he is thirsty, he may drink water from the flowing river. He is not required to live in a comfortable house, but should find out a cave in the hills and may not be afraid of jungle animals, keeping faith in God who lives in everyone's heart. Lord may dictate to tigers and other jungle animals not to disturb his devotee. Haridas Thakur, a great devotee of Lord Sri Chaitanya, used to live in such a cave, and by chance, a great venomous snake also was a co-partner of the cave. Some admirer of Thakur Haridas, who had to visit the Thakur every day, feared the snake and gave a suggestion to the Thakur to leave that place. Because his devotees were afraid of the snake and they were regularly visiting the cave, Thakur Haridas agreed to the proposal on their account. But as soon as this was settled, the snake actually crawled out of its hole in the cave and left the cave for good before everyone present. By the dictation of the Lord, who lives also within the heart of the snake gave preference to Haridas and decided to leave the place and not disturb him. So this is a tangible example of how the Lord gives protection to a bona fide devotee like Thakur Haridas. Jai Shishi Gaurnitai. According to the regulations of the Sanatana Dharma Institution, one is trained from the beginning to depend fully on the protection of the Lord in all circumstances. The path of renunciation is recommended for acceptance by one who is fully accomplished and fully purified in one's existence. This stage is described also in the Bhagavad Gita as Daivid Sampad, Bhagavad Gita 16:5. A human being is required to accumulate Daivi Sampad, or spiritual assets. Otherwise, the next alternative, Asuri Sampad, or material assets, will overcome him disproportionately, and thus one will be forced into the entanglement of different miseries of the material world. Sannyasi should always live alone, without company, and he must be fearless. He should never be afraid of living alone, although he is never alone. The Lord is residing in everyone's heart, and unless one is purified by this prescribed process, one will feel that he is alone. But a man in a renounced order of life must be purified by the process. Thus he will feel the presence of the Lord everywhere and will have nothing to fear, such as being without any company. Everyone can become a fearless and honest person if his very existence is purified by discharging the prescribed duty for each and every order of life. One can't become fixed in one's prescribed duty by faithful oral reception of Vedic instructions and assimilation of the essence of Vedic knowledge by devotional service of the Lord. So this is a very famous verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, and there are very many valuable instructions in this verse, a nice purport for those in renounced order of life and for the people in general. So this is the description of the process of tapasya. Without tapasya, we heard yesterday, without tapasya, nothing is possible. So every human being is expected to undergo tapasya to achieve a higher condition of life. So we see early in the morning here in Kansas City, people are undergoing tapasya. They're driving in the cars to downtown Kansas City, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, working hard all day and coming back in the evening. But not this kind of tapasya. This tapasya is for sense gratification. There's no permanent value. They may achieve some temporary bodily comforts. But to achieve those bodily comforts, they have to undergo so much tapasya that they risk their lives driving on these highways. And devotees also risk their lives driving on the highways, but not for sense gratification, but for preaching Krishna consciousness all over Kansas City and all over the world. And it says that the first duty of one in a renounced order of life is to establish transcendental books about Krishna consciousness or about transcendental subject matters. And His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami has actually done this. He's published something like 50 books. See, Garga Samhita and others. And one of his books, a nice practical book for devotees, is called Driving for Krishna, because in the Krishna consciousness movement, so many devotees have lost their lives on the highway because sometimes devotees are accustomed to minimizing their sleep, and sometimes they fall asleep and crash their car and were killed. So this is a good practical book for how to practically implement the instructions of the spiritual master. So if when it's driving more than 1 hour on the interstate, it might be necessary to sleep more than 6 hours. Generally, one is not recommended to sleep more than 6 hours out of 24. Otherwise, one is contaminated by the mode of ignorance. And it says, are there no torn clothes lying on the common road? So a person who is in the mode of goodness, he voluntarily accepts a life of poverty. This is the symptom of a Brahmin. He performs austerities. And one could clothe himself by going to the discount store like Salvation Army or Goodwill, and In New Vrindavan, when I joined in 1973, the bhaktas were not given new clothes. They were given clothes that were rejected by the Brahmins. So His Holiness Kirtananda Swami was the first to establish the Varnashram Dharma in the Western world. And the Brahmins were at the prasadam lines, the Brahmins were fed first, then the other devotees. But for preaching purposes, if one goes out to the university wearing torn clothes, it's not very favorable for preaching. So the preachers should wear presentable clothes. They should dress like gentlemen, not extravagantly, not luxuriously, but they should wear clean clothes that are not torn. So the trees are very magnanimous. A mendicant went in a renounced story of life. He can get his sustenance by taking advantage of the fruits that naturally fall from the trees, and he can offer those to the Lord and maintain himself. And when Srila Prabhupada came to New Vrindavan, he said, "This place is not meant for sense gratification. New Vrindavan is not meant for economic development." But Prabhupada said, "This place is perfect for tapasa. One can live on the natural fruits in the forest. There are fruits like blackberries and black walnuts. And all the trees, the trees, when they die, they can be used for fuel. And then in New Vrindavan, all the cooking and heating was done by wood from the forest. So there's no need on depending on the coal and gas like the devotees in the city are accustomed to doing. And nowadays in Kali Yuga, many rivers are drying up. Even in the United States of America, the Colorado River, which supplies drinking water and irrigation water for millions of Americans, they say because of severe drought over decades, this river is drying up. So this is the influence of Kali Yuga. But the rivers that are there, since the river is flowing, its water is relatively pure, and it can be used for drinking. And for one's residents, one in the now sort of life can choose a cave. In the state of Missouri, there are many caves, and formerly they were used by people for residents. So there's no need of going to so much struggle and spending so much money to construct residences. Recently, there's this story in the news about some yogis in India, and yogis in India are accustomed to living in Himalayan caves, and these two yogis were quarreling because they both claim the same cave, and they even went to court to settle who was the proprietor of this cave. So even in the non-sort of life, sometimes attachment is there. So if one wants to go back home, back to God, one has to give up all the attachments of this material world. The devotee, he sometimes may sleep under a tree, sometimes in a palace, sometimes in a cave, but he's not attached to any residence in the material world, because he knows his real residence is not in this world, but in the kingdom of God. And the sannyasis are accustomed to going to the homes of householders, not because they need to, but to benefit the householders. And it is for the benefit of the householders if they give to a sannyasi, especially if he's a pure devotee. The benefit the householder gets from giving in charity to a Brahmin or a devotee is very great. And if one gives charity to a pure devotee, his benefit in the future is unlimited. No one can calculate. So this verse very nicely describes the activities of one in the mode of goodness, especially those in the renounced order of life. And one should not go to the householders to flatter them. Rather, the sannyasi's business is to cut their illusion, because generally the householders are thinking that this residence will give me shelter, but actually the only shelter is Krishna. And this house is temporary, but my real home is in the spiritual world and the kingdom of God. So when he is enlightened, he can understand that no one can give me shelter but Krishna. Actually, my husband, my wife, my children, my friends and relatives, my strong military-backed government, these things cannot save us from the hands of death. Only Krishna can save us, even the demigods. Lord Shiva says, I cannot give liberation, only Vishnu can give liberation. So the devotees of the Lord, they take shelter of the Lord only, and they live very happily and peacefully in Krishna consciousness. And in the Prabhupada very nicely that describes the activities of Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and Vrindavan. These Goswamis of Vrindavan, formerly they were opulent householders, but they gave up everything to take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. Jai Shri Shri Gauranatai. And the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they've lived under the trees of Vrindavan, and every night under a different tree, because the trees in Vrindavan are desire trees. And the Goswamis realized these were the desire trees. They're fulfilling all my desires by the grace of Krishna. So the residence in the forest is considered to be in the mode of goodness. Residence in a village or city is considered to be in the mode of passion. And residence in a degraded place like a saloon or brothel is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. But residence in the temple of the Lord, like here in Kansas City, we're very fortunate. His Holiness Dhanava Goswami has established a nice ashram here for the purpose of spreading Krishna consciousness. And devotees are going out, distributing books, going out Harinam for the benefit of the conditioned souls. I was listening to this lecture by from Boston, and he was telling this story. It was around 1970, and there was a drug dealer in an American city, and this drug dealer was fleeing from the police. And the drug dealer saw there was a Hare Krishna Sankirtan party in the street. And the drug dealer thought, aha, this is my chance to escape the police. I'll go in the middle of the Sankirtan party and pretend I'm a Hare Krishna devotee. So he did that, and the police couldn't find him. They thought he was not a devotee of the Lord. And when the police passed by, this drug dealer thought that now, here's my chance to leave the Sankirtan party, but the devotees wouldn't let him leave. He says, no, don't leave. Keep on chanting Hare Krishna. And he went to the other side of the Sankirtan party, and another devotee said, no, you have a human form of life. Don't waste it. So they convinced him to stay, and he went to the temple, and he told the temple president, I want to join the Hare Krishna movement. But his motive was to escape the police, because the police were searching outside the temple. They were looking everywhere for where this drug dealer had run to. So this drug dealer was taken to the temple, and the temple president praised the Sankirtan party leader. He says this leader is singing Hare Krishna so wonderfully that he has attracted this person to immediately join the Hare Krishna movement. So this Harinam leader should go out every day and continue this welfare work. So this drug dealer was woken up at 3:30 the next morning. Jeev Jago, Gaur Chandra Bole. He thought, who is this Gaur Chandra fellow? He's waking me up at 3:30 in the morning. And then he said the first thing you have to do is take a shower. So there was one bathroom in the temple, so there was a queue early in the morning for waiting to take a shower. And he was thinking, boy, this bathroom must be very opulent. There were so many devotees waiting to use it. But when he got there, he found out there was cold water. And after taking a cold shower, there was no heat in the bathroom. And then after drying off, he was dressed in a cloth. He thought it was like a big diaper. He was led to the temple room, and he saw there were men and women worshiping statues. And he also did everything the devotees were doing because he thought this is a custom. And the devotees told him, do the Swami step, do the Swami step. So he started swinging his feet back and forth in rhythm to the kirtan. And he was thinking, when will I be able to go to sleep? I'm so tired. This is too much waking up at 3:30 in the morning. So after the there was Nrsimha Puja, and they're chanting the Nrsimha prayers, and there's a big picture of Lord Nrsimha with the demon Hiranyakasipu being ripped apart on Nrsimhadeva's lap, and there were intestines wrapped around Lord Nrsimhadeva's neck, and he saw that Lord Nrsimha's clothes were bloody, and it was a ghastly scene. And it looked like a supernatural being with a lion's head and a man's body and a lion's claws. And the drug dealer thought, what is this? And the devotee told him, this is what will happen to you if you don't chant the names of God. And then there's japa. And the devotee is told, now you have to chant Hare Krishna mantra 16 times on these japa beads. So I gave him japa beads in a bead bag. Everyone, all the devotees had the bead bags, and they were chanting with their index finger pointing out of the bead bag. And the drug dealer was thinking, all these people are pointing at me. Do they know I'm guilty of a crime? Do they know I'm wanted by the police? Why are they pointing at me? And he's also imitating the devotees, except he took the beads out of the bead bag and started walking around with his index finger pointing out. No, you're the one, not me. You're guilty, not me. So next there was Srimad Bhagavatam class, and by this time this drug dealer was getting sleepier and sleepier, and he said, when will I be able to sleep? And during Srimad Bhagavatam class, he started nodding off. And the devotee prodded him and said, well, wake up. If you sleep during Srimad Bhagavatam class, there's no prasadam for you. There's no breakfast for you. So he forced himself to stay awake during Srimad Bhagavatam class. And then there was greeting the deities, another nice kirtan. Then there was Guru Puja. They were worshiping the divine form of Srila Prabhupada and the Vyasa-san, the spiritual master. And he says, this is too much, so many things before 7 a.m. in the morning, it's too much. And then there was prasadam, there's breakfast prasadam. Then after prasadam, the temple president came this drug dealer and told him, well, you go out in the streets and chant Hare Krishna for 12 hours and distribute books. Here's kartals, here's Madanga, and here's Bhagavad Gita and other transcendental books. So he was out from 9 in the morning to 9 p.m. chanting Hare Krishna and distributing books with the other devotees. So this schedule went on day after day, week after week, month after month. Then after 6 months, this drug dealer came to the temple president and says, no, this austerity is so much, it's very difficult for me. And he told the temple president, actually, you do not know who I really am. And the temple president said, oh, that's very good. You've made so much advancement in only 6 months. You're realizing you're not this material body, but your spirit soul. And the drug dealer said, actually, I'm a drug dealer. The temple president said, what? You're staying in this temple? You can get us in trouble with the police. And the drug dealer said, I want to surrender to Krishna. And the temple president told him, it was very good, but first of all, you have to surrender to the police. So he went to the police and turned himself in. And soon afterwards, there was a court case. And the judge was there in the courtroom, and drug dealer was there in the courtroom. And the judge asked him to describe his present activities. And the drug dealer said, well, first of all, I wake up 3:30 in the morning, I go to the bathroom, stand in line and queue, and when it's my turn to take a bath, I take a cold shower. And the judge says, well, what's next? Then we go to the temple and worship the deities and do the Swami step for half an hour. And he said, well, what's next? Then we worship a plant. We circumambulate a plant in the temple room. And the devotee asked him, how many times do I have to circumambulate? And the devotee told him, till you're almost fainting. So he was doing this, walking round and around on Tulsi Devi. And after that, there's Srimad Bhagavatam class, and there's Guru Puja and greeting the deities and so on. And he had to tell the judge, I can go out in the street for 12 hours chanting Hare Krishna and distributing transcendental literature from 9 o'clock in the morning until evening. And the judge said, well, there's no need for you to go to jail. And the police president who put this person under arrest were also in the courtroom, and the police protested to the judge that this is a dangerous drug dealer. He should be put in jail. And the judge told the police that he's undergoing more punishment now than he would be in a prison. So there's no need for him to go to jail because this is a kind of rehabilitation. And this devotee, who was formerly drug dealer, he surrendered his life to Krishna, and he was initiated by Srila Prabhupada. And he became a leading devotee in ISKCON. And the last I heard, he was still actively serving in Srila Prabhupada's mission. So Prabhupada is famous as Patita Pavana, the favorite savior of the most fallen souls. Any comments or questions? Donovan Maharaj.
In the story of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he appealed to the devotees for their blessings before he could take up the task of writing. And Prabhupada praised that one should get the blessings of the Vaishnavas to write and get the instruction from the spiritual master. But this verse, as you pointed out, purport, Prabhupada specifically says, first duty of those in the renouncement of life is to leave behind some literary work for them. So I took that as this statement that this is my order, this is my instruction. So when I took sannyas, I began writing. And I was praying that the devotees would also, Vaishnavas would give their blessing. So I think that's happened by the mercy of the Lord. Writing has gone on, and by the blessings of the Vaishnavas, it's continuing. So I'd like to give credit to this verse and to all the other Vaishnavas. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada also dedicated his life. He was specifically ordered by his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, to write books in the English language. And he wrote something like 70 volumes on the science of the soul, the science of God. So these books are very valuable. And as early as 1969, Srila Prabhupada was writing 5 books at one time. And Prabhupada said that when one becomes self-realized, automatically he writes volumes of books. Any other comments or questions? Thank you all for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to His divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
We'll read the book distribution scores for this week of March 13th. For the pleasure of the assembled devotees, the Sampradaya Acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, Tulsi Maharani, and Sri Sri Gauranitai. Hari Bo. This week, we had 4 book distributors. And do we have some instruments for ecstatic celebration? In the 4th position, with 1 medium book and 1 big book for a total of 1.5 book points, Margie. Hello. In 3rd position, with 8 medium books for a total of 4 book points, Jivadaya Prabhu. Hello. In 2nd position, with 1 Arabic small book, 8 small books, and 1 medium book, 4 big books, 1 Maha big book for a total of 11.5 book points, Magadari Prabhu. Haribo. And in 1st position, with 5 small books, 6 big books, and 4 Maha big books for a total of 15.25 book points, Rishi Kumar Das. And the RVC total for this week is 1 Arabic small book, 13 small books, 10 medium books, 11 big books, and 5 Maha big books for a total of 32.25 book points. Well, oh, last week what kind of book was it? Perfection of Yoga. So the RVC total is now 32.5 book points. Okay, we can go through and say some highlights and also here's some cookies. So this week, thank you. Jivadaya and I went to pick up the Sankirtan van that was getting fixed for some time and to also distribute at Walmart. And we had a short time to distribute, so we just kind of ran through and tried to approach everyone. And on the way out, we were walking past the glasses section, and I recognized the person sitting at the desk. And it was someone that I had met a long time, like maybe at least half a year ago with Bhakta Avatar, this Indian lady who wanted to get the whole stack of the Saptarishi set we had with us that time. And she wanted to get it the next day. And I was never able to come back there and give her the Saptarishi set. But then we saw her there again, and we gave her the Krishna book, and she was very happy to take it. She took off her shoes to accept the book, and then went to the back and got $20. And then we gave her the Bhagavad Gita too, and Jivadoya gave her the cookbook. And so then she went to the back to get more of a donation, and she wanted the card to know when to come for the feast. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai.
So we went, Bhaktavan and I, we were on an adventure with some folks in Prasadam, and we didn't have much time, so we just went down the street. And actually, there's plenty of people everywhere, and everyone can be approached. So we ended up with a few minutes before we had to do our next task. We went to the BP, and we brought a big plate of prasad in there, and we gave it to the guy. His name is Sam, and he was so happy about the prasadam. And I said, "You have our books?" And he pulled out the Bhagavad Gita. He said, "Yeah, I'm reading it." I was excited. So that's great. But I said, "You have this one?" And we just asked, so then he gave a small donation for another book. And then additionally, there was this little girl there, and she had a penny that her mom gave her or something. She was like ready to give it to somebody. And at that point, I just said, "Well, hey, I'll give you this." And I gave her a small book, and she gave me the penny. So, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai.
On the Maha Harinam, it was a little more, just over a week ago. Sorry, I didn't report it. Magadari Prabhu, myself, Radunga, and Jivadaya, and who's the other Bhaktin? Anyways, we all went out on Harinam on Saturday night, and it was actually quite an ecstatic Harinam. There was a lot of groups of people down there chanting, as there often are on the plaza, and several of them came and danced with us. When they would come over, we'd all kind of fire up the kirtan, and every once in a while someone would throw a donation in the basket, not really asking for a book. And so when I would see that, I would go over and give them a book and make sure that they got something to take home. It was particularly nice seeing the very young people dancing and chanting so freely without any inhibition. Really inspiring.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.